So I was sitting there and I remember looking down at the desk and I thought I saw my name on a bit of paper. And so when I looked over at the desk, I saw this bit of paper and I saw my name, Arnold, diversity ? So I almost felt like it was a bit of a weird two-minded thing, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, well, what's the reason now why he's asking me to do this?
Take part in any extracurricular activities?
So yeah, there was two, basketball and a kiting club.
Right.
But an interesting story with kiting club is that, you know, you had to sort of work your way up through the ranks. You couldn't just jump straight into the car and start driving straight away. So I was there, you know, I was happy to do my part. That's part of my weird competitive nature, is that I want to work from the bottom, get myself all the way up to the top. It's like a bit of a Tony Montana, I guess, is the way I sort of see it. But yeah, so I was there doing my wheel mechanics, worked up to then the engine. But then, you know, I'm there doing the work, and then there's another guy, Tim, who then became like an exception to the rule. You know, white guy came in and just was able to drive, you know, set straight into the seat. But he wasn't the only one. There was multiple other occasions where people would actually be able to come in. They don't actually need to do all of the other mechanic work or going through all of those other bits, all the other stages. They can just get into the car straight away and be able to go and drive it. So, and throughout my time there, I never actually got to get into the stage of driving the car. I actually just did a lot of the mechanic work and the bits which were around the seats, rather than actually being in the driving seat.
Wow. And why do you think that was? Did you ever ask why those guys got fast-tracked?
To be honest, I never did. And again, I think that all comes back to that sort of people-pleasing nature. So, you know, you want to please other people, so you put other people's happiness almost in front of your own. You know, and that sounds very crazy to say, but that's almost like the effect, or the way I sort of saw it. You know, maybe they had a deserving right. You know, it's weird to look back at it now, whilst at the time, you know, maybe they deserved the right to be able. Maybe they were going to go on to be like amazing at doing driving. So I almost put their needs ahead of my own, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So just moving now on to sixth form. Mm-hmm. Did you stay on at the same school, and what subjects did you do?
I did, yeah. So I stayed on at the Berkeley School, did the sixth form there. I did design and technology, IT, and drama were my three courses I did. But yeah, sixth form was it was a fairly good experience. Again, I was one of two blacks who were in the sixth form. We actually merged with another school, so you had 2 years of sixth form. So we had our sixth form class, and then there was another sixth form class at Thomas Alleyne School in Stevenage, and I was then pretty much one of two who was of blacks who were there throughout my entire time during sixth form.
So who were your friends while you were at sixth form?
So during sixth form, there was definitely a shift. So, for example, Phil and Daniel, who I mentioned, you know, my boys, they moved on to do other things outside of school. And same with Morat, my other close friend. So that he went off to college. Daniel went started in work, and same with Phil. So there was like a very much a change in dynamic, and it was almost back to where I was almost in the start of school. And growing up or working with like my white peers. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. One interesting thing that happened during sixth form was when I became head student for the school. And so, bearing in mind, you know, my grades are not exactly the best. They're not the worst. You know, I'm doing sort of B's and C's, but I'm nowhere near. You know, there was Gemma White, who like everybody knew who was going to go. She was definitely going. She was destined for Cambridge. There was Sarah Mills, who was always going to go to Oxford. That's where her mum went. That's where she was destined to go there. People who were also going to go abroad, you know, to go and travel and work at universities or go to universities abroad as well. So I'm very much, you know, a run-of-the-mill student. And so I got a call from a teacher to say, okay, the headmaster wants to see you. So I was like, oh, okay, cool, what have I done? So went into the headmaster's office, sat down, and he's, you know, explaining to me, he's like, oh, you know, so we run like a head students program. It's, you know, even for me, it's something I'd never even heard of. You know, that's how much I didn't really sort of gravitate towards it. But yeah, so he's like, oh, is that something you would be interested in doing? And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, you know, okay, well, why me? Like, okay, but you know, that sounds great. I can try to do this. And you know, he's really trying to sell it to me and say, you know, this can be great for your career and for life going forward. You know, people who go on to do great things. And So you can think about that as you're going through. And so I said, okay, yeah, cool, let's see if we can get something set up, you know. And he left the room, and I remember sitting there and thinking, wow, this is like amazing, you know. I feel like almost valued to be able to be in this position. And then, so I was sitting there, and I remember looking down at the desk, and I thought I saw my name on a bit of paper. And so when I looked over at the desk, I saw this bit of paper, and I saw my name, Arnold, diversity ? So I almost felt like it was a bit of a weird two-minded thing, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, well, what's the reason now why he's asking me to do this? Is it because he needs to use me as a diversity card, or is it more that he does value the stuff that he wants me to do, all the things that he's just told me about? So it was like very much a two-minded, I was very much in a weird place.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So then moving on from sixth form, university.
So I guess almost the route for university was again another interesting story. So when I wanted to go to university, as I talked about, I wasn't at the time, there was my two key interests. I was interested in IT at the time, so I was interested in creating websites even back in those early days. That was all I spent my time doing. There was other parts of IT which are, you know, I wasn't really interested in. I knew that I wanted to do, this is the thing that I wanted to do. That and chess. Being the geek that I am, those were my two key interests. Anything that had problem solving was what I was interested in. So, you know, everyone was talking about going to university, and at the time I wasn't really sure like that was the route for me. I wasn't really excelling, so I was thinking, you know, maybe it's not right the route that I should go down. But I found this course it's a modified version of computer science called Internet Technology, and they run it in ARU in Cambridge. So I was, you know, I had the pamphlet, and I took that to my career guidance counsellor. I said, look, I'm really interested in doing this. It's got all the bits that I love from IT. It seems like it's got problem solving, which you know, at the time I felt like I was quite good at having a problem and trying to solve that problem. And I remember he sat there and was, you know, came there, like, sat back, gave a and then went to his little pamphlets on the side, and then pulled out a pamphlet, stood there in front, and it was a BTEC plumbing course that you would do at the local college, and was like, I think this is probably a bit more for where you should be going. And bearing in mind at the time, I didn't, you know, he's my career guidance counsellor, and I wasn't really sure that I even wanted to go to university. So I took that and I thought, okay, cool, that's, you know, maybe that's what I should be sort of doing. And I remember when the key thing for that was I got back to the common room where we were all sitting, and I think Jim, or Jimmy was his nickname, was in the room. And bearing in mind, Jimmy, he's doing like nowhere the same grades as me. You know, I'm nowhere near the best, but he's not achieving the same as me. You know, C's, maybe D's, E's is where his sort of level is at. And you know, he's had maybe a couple of interviews before me, and he's got a pamphlet for university. And I remember that was like the one time when I was like, you know, I've been through this whole thing of people pleasing and doing all this, and that was the moment where like my outlook on everything sort of changed. That was my key, my driving factor in making me want to go to university. My key goal or drive for going to university and doing that course, and I set myself the target. I said, right, I'm going to come back with a first class honours degree purely so I can come back with that bit of paper, put it in front of your desk and tell me you told me I should do plumbing. That was like my one key goal. That was exactly my key goal for going to uni. When I went to uni, as I sort of mentioned, I'm ridiculously competitive, and I was like, I'm going to be driven by my actions, that my outcomes are going to drive what defines me. And that's was my driving setting for going to uni. So at uni, I was in that first year, I was very much heads down. Like I sort of changed. Before that, I was very much social and going out and doing all kinds of other stuff, like extracurricular stuff. But when I got to that university setting, I was really sort of like sat down and said, look, until I can come back and be able to prove that, that's my one key factor. Then the other thing I decided that I wanted to do was also was to travel to America to go and do university out there. So I'd always had that ambition of doing basketball. I didn't grow to be 6'5", so there was no chance of that happening. But it was still something that was on my list that I really wanted to achieve, and that's one thing that this course had. But you had to have set criteria in grades. Like you had to have, it was like basically plus 70 was the marker that you needed to be able to get into that. So I said, all right, cool. You know, I'm mainly around like the 50s, 60s now. That's what I need to do to be able to do it. That's what I'm going to need to be able to do. So that was my key focus for that first year of university. I had a small set or group of friends, again predominantly white friends. We lived all in like a like the university town village. Predominantly white friends there, but I did get also exposed to like the Afro-Caribbean society there as well, which was quite cool because it was almost like a family away from home, like a little community that you had who almost had similar experiences to you, understood you from like your family values standpoint. So that was really a cool dynamic. But yeah, my core group of friends were the kids on my course who were, it was me and I think one other black guy.
And so did you get that first class honours?
I did, yeah. I got the first class honours. I also did a year out in the States as well. So that was my two key objectives. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go back to take my certificate back to him. But yeah, there was still pleasure in the fact that, I'd set this goal and that was the outcome that I wanted to come from it. So it's me speaking with my actions rather than me turning around and I guess shouting or getting upset and not really doing anything with that energy. I wanted to really turn that into something that was like actually tangible, and luckily I was able to go and do that.